Good day, everyone. So, today we're going to talk about the Volunteer Act of 2007. So, from the word itself, volunteer, you might have an idea in mind that what this act is all about. So, volunteer, it refers to a person, a group of people that extends their efforts, time, and help to those people who are in need without getting paid. So, just a short glimpse about what this act is all about. So, to dig deeper, let me proceed with this question. What is Volunteer Act of 2007 all about? So, ano ba talaga itong Republic Act na ito? It is an act institutionalizing for rural development, strengthening volunteerism, and for other purposes. So it is also called the Republic Act 9418. So in section 1 in this code, this act shall be known and cited as the Volunteer Act of 2007. So it also means that this legislation recognizes that volunteerism or bayanihan can be harnessed as a strategy for national development and international cooperation. So, when we encounter such word, volunteerism or bayanihan, so it simply means that working hand in hand for a certain purpose, right? So, if you want to become a volunteer, you you must have a goal. That goal must be must produce a product. Like kung gusto mong tumulong, then so be it. You are volunteering yourself to help other people who are in need. So that's what volunteerism and volunteering means. So before we will proceed to the proper discussion, let me first show to you a short video clip about what this Volunteer Act of 2007 really is. So let me just play this video and please listen and watch carefully.
He is keen to tutor his friends on the lessons they don't understand.
All right. So, from the video that I've shown to you, it simply illustrates how volunteerism works. So in the video, it was shown that you don't need to be a part of a large organization for you to become a volunteer, for you to raise funds, and for you to help people. It's up to you, it's your decision. If you are willing to help, then so be it. If you want to become a volunteer, then start with yourself, right? So it's a matter of determination, or it's a matter of pagpupursige mo. Kung gusto mo talagang makatulong, and you know that there are lots of people na nangangailangan din ng tulong, so it's a good start. Kasi, alam nyo, napakasarap din kasi na makatulong sa ibang tao. Alright, so, there you go. Now we will start with our final or proper discussion. So we have the second section, the declaration of policy. So ano bang meron dito? So it promotes the participation of various sectors of the Filipino society and international and foreign volunteer organization in public and civic affairs. So this act commits government to partnership to achieve the needed social transformation and sustainable development through volunteerism. So see, meron din naman tayong tinatawag na volunteerism or yung mga large organizations na tumutulong. So where it doesn't only evolve around a single person or an organization here in our country, but also we are promoting international and foreign volunteer organization. So it means na meron ding galing sa ibang bansa. So say for example, during this pandemic, the US government donated hospital beds here in our country. So, doon, yung mga hospital beds ay nilagay sa mga hospitals doon sa parting Luzon. Kasi, di ba, nung time na yun, yung COVID talaga is dumarami yung cases ng COVID doon sa Luzon. So, yeah, we promote foreign international volunteer organizations. So with that, we received donations from other country. So see, that's how this act good. That's what the beauty, or that's the beauty of this code. And then we promote bayanihan to foster social justice, solidarity, and sustainable development. See, work hand in hand, volunteerism. So that's what it is. Then next in section 3, we have the statement of goals and objectives. So to carry out the foregoing policy, the government shall pursue the attainment of the following goals and objectives. So we have to provide a policy framework on volunteerism that shall underscore the fundamental principles necessary to harness and to harmonize the broad and diverse efforts of the voluntary sector in the country. Next, we have to produce or to provide a conducive and enabling environment for volunteers and volunteer service organizations by setting mechanisms to protect volunteers' rights and privileges and give due recognition to highlight their roles and contributions to society. So, kailangan din natin i-lift up, bigyan din ng rights and privileges yung ating mga volunteers. And to give recognition, i-recognize din natin yung mga roles and contributions nila in the society. Kasi di ba, they extend a great help talaga sa atin. And next, to provide an effective institutional mechanism to strengthen the role of the Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency, or known as PNVSCA, to perform its mandates and to oversee the implementation of this act. So, furthermore, or later part, we will know the mandates of this agency. Then we have the definition of terms. So, for purposes of this act, the following, or this definition of terms. Okay, first we have the volunteerism. It refers to an act involving a wide range of activities, including traditional forms of mutual aid and developmental interventions that provides an enabling and empowering environment both on the part of the beneficiary receiving and the volunteer rendering the act. So, volunteerism simply means bayanihan. It's an act like how you help other people with a goal, and it's working hand in hand. So it enables or it empowers environment both on the beneficiary, which is the receiver of, and the volunteer also. Next, we have the volunteer. So it refers to an individual or group who, for reasons arising from their social, developmental, business, and corporate orientation, commitment, or conviction, can contribute time. This refers not just only to an organization, okay? So it could also be a single person who contributes time and service and resources without getting paid or without getting something in return, whether it could be on full-time or part-time basis. Next, we have the volunteer service organization. It refers to a local or foreign group that recruits, trains, and deploys supports volunteer workers to programs and projects. So, of course, when we are talking about large organizations, so we have this what we call volunteer service organizations, wherein this organization recruits, trains, and deploys volunteer workers to certain programs and projects that they implemented. And lastly is the voluntary sector. So this refers to those sectors of Philippine society that organizes themselves into volunteers to take advocacy and action primarily for local and national development as well as international cooperation and understanding. So, since we're talking about bigger organizations, so we have this voluntary sector that they take advocacy and action from local to national and also to international. So next we have the roles and modalities of volunteerism in the private sector. Okay? So we have volunteerism in the academe includes but is not limited to provision of technical assistance and sharing of technology within the academic circle, target communities and other clienteles, and the upgrading of the quality of education and curriculum methodologies while providing career enhancement and exposure to the volunteers. So let me just elaborate a little bit on this academe. The Volunteer Act specifically calls for integrating volunteerism in the education curriculum. So with this proposal, it will encourage academic institutions by continuously devise ways to effectively teach and practice the value of volunteerism. Kasi mostly, especially ngayon, 'di ba, pandemic, there are lots of people na walang trabaho kasi during lockdown nag-close halos lahat ng company, especially private companies. So, there are lots of people also who extends their help, their effort and time. So, with this, meron din tayong tinatawag na knowledge or knowledge on volunteerism na kailangan din itong ituro sa lalo na sa mga bata so that they will know the value of bayanihan na there may there might be another people or another person or people na mas nangangailangan pa pala kaysa sa atin. So, it's promoting the practice of the value of volunteerism. Next is volunteerism in the corporate sector as an expression for corporate social responsibility and citizenship. It refers to activities recognized by the company where employees give their time, skills, and resources in the service of the company's internal and or external communities. So, hindi lang to pinapractice in the academe but also especially in the private sectors or private companies meron din naman tayong tinatawag na bayanihan, like for example, like sa akin, I was one of a volunteer in our company, in my previous company, and doon ko nasabi na it is really good to help other people. It really feels good na kami nagtutulong-tulong. Like just yung maliliit lang na bagay. Like gumawa kami ng feeding program para sa mga bata and nagbigay ng mga damit, laruan, yung mga ganun. But it really is good when you give something that you know that the one you are giving something good is yung mas nangangailangan pa sa'yo. Next, we have volunteerism by not-for-profit organizations includes but is not limited to provision of complementary service delivery in human resource development in underserved communities as well as advocacy and articulation of the cause of the disadvantaged and vulnerable groups. So, it's extending help sa mga underserved communities, yung mga lalo na yung mga malalayo sa kabihasnan. Like 'di ba, during lockdown, meron in Bisaya term the ayuda. So we have the ayuda coming from the government and yes, most of it is yung iba meron tayong mga underserved communities na di nabigyan. So it provides chaos that time kasi maraming nagrarant, maraming nagkakalit kasi may hindi nabigyan ng mga pagkain. But there are certain organizations who maybe they research kung saan ba yung lugar na hindi nabigyan and saan ba yung mga vulnerable, saan ba yung mga tao na hindi nabigyan ng ayuda galing sa gobyerno. Kasi it could be na malalayo talaga sila from the city, yung mga nasa bukid. So, yes, it's not for-profit organizations. And then next we have the roles and modalities of volunteerism by foreign volunteer organizations. So see, we're not just focusing on the local or national volunteer organizations, but also we are promoting the participation of the foreign volunteer organizations. So we have volunteerism by foreign volunteer organizations includes but is not limited to provision of technical assistance not locally accessible in priority development areas within the framework of technical cooperation and socio-cultural exchange. So, by giving something or by extending help, it is not only limited to those development areas. So, next we have the section 7, the role of the government. So, what it was stated that the government shall coordinate, facilitate, and encourage the participation of the voluntary sector in the promotion, utilization, and recognition of voluntarism in national development and international cooperation. They shall be achieved through the provision of enabling and conducive environment for volunteer work. Of course, in such larger organizations, especially here in our country, the government must also take its part. Kasi, like, for example, nung pandemic, 'di ba, yung government natin is nag-allot ng budget para sa pamimigay ng relief goods. Kasi nga, kasi nga total lockdown tayo last month. And the government should facilitate and encourage the participation of the voluntary sector, especially these times. Okay, next is section 8. So, the Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency, or the PNVSCA. So, it was created by the Executive Order number 134, which was amended and shall undertake the implementation and execution of the provisions of this act. So, sila yung nag-mandate, sila yung nag-undertake ng implementation sa Republic Act na ito. And we have the mandates of the PNVSCA under Section 9. So, we have this first function. So, we have the following functions: review and formulate policies and guidelines concerning the National Volunteer Service Program consistent with national development authorities. So, nagbibigay din sila. Isa sa mga function nila is yung nag-formulate, nagbibigay ng guidelines about sa National Volunteer Service Program. And they coordinate, monitor, and evaluate the National Volunteer Service Program in order that volunteer assistance may fit into the total national development goals. So, before you volunteer something or before you do something, you must have a goal, right? And so, here, the PNVSCA provides or they evaluate the volunteer if if they fit into the total national development goals, and they act as clearinghouse for matters pertaining to international volunteer services. Also, they develop and implement prototypes and models of volunteering for adoption by institutions and communities. So, nagbibigay din sila ng models of volunteering para yung mga models na yon ma-adapt ng local communities, ma-adapt ng institution at maituro sa ibang tao. And
They provide technical services and support for capability building of volunteers and volunteer organizations. They also undertake advocacy for the promotion and recognition of volunteerism as a tool for development. They also establish and maintain a national network of volunteer organizations and serve as a liaison between and among local and foreign governmental private voluntary organizations, including the United Nations, volunteers, and administer all the PNVSCA funds from all sources, including foreign aid accordance with accounting and auditing requirements. So, of course, we are talking about big organizations, national organizations. So, meron din tayong funds. So, may nag-a-account and so, kailangan ding i-account or i-audit yung mga naibigay or yung funds na ni-raise para sa certain project.
So, to carry out the purposes of this act, an institutional mechanism shall be established to be spearheaded and administered by the PNVSCA for continuing research, documentation, recognition, and modeling of best volunteer practices as an important component of implementing development programs and projects and undertaking humanitarian activities. So, for this purpose, this or the PNVSCA, in consultation with any and all relevant government agencies, the NGOs, the private institutions, and person, shall effect the setting up of the mechanisms to ensure its effective implementation. So, di ba, kailangan din mag-model or meron ding modeling of best volunteer practices para ma-implement ang mga programs or projects na gagawin. Next, we have the implementing rules and regulations under Section 14. So the PNVSCA, with advice from the MSAB, shall promulgate the rules and regulations to effectively implement the provisions of this Act. Of course, kailangan din ng rules and regulations. Kailangan ng guidelines in order to implement the projects or the programs na gagawin. And under Section 15, the Repealing Clause. All laws, decrees, executive orders, and rules and regulations or parts thereof contrary to or inconsistent with the provisions of this Act, including the Section 12 of Executive Order number 635, are hereby deemed repealed or modified accordingly. And lastly is the effectivity. So this act shall take effect after 15 days following its publication in the official gazette or in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. 'Di ba? So medyo ano, di rin siya madali mag-take effect. So kailangan pang maghintay following the publication. So kailangan pa itong i-publish. So ngayon, isa na talaga siyang act. So isa na siyang Republic Act, and it was already amended and approved. All right. So that's it. I hope you learned something. And volunteerism is really important. And when you want to become a volunteer, you really don't need to be involved in such organization. So it's up to you. If you can do something, then do it wholeheartedly. Thank you, and that's it.